Another day, another chance, another win, another dance. Today I'm discussing to you all about a mistake that was made. Well, actually not a mistake, but it's just technical difficulty. So I'm sure you all try to like watch, chapter three. Then you also the mishap. You guys like chapter three and what happened. So yeah, what happened was in my chapter three didn't actually work properly because the sound wasn't working for some reason. Even though I made sure that it did, but you know, stuff happens. So yeah, as in general, I'll make it right. I'll fix up the problem, and yeah, I'll, I'll pretty much do like a reboot on what I try to do, for my chapter three. So let's get to this. And my navigator, Savas, right, as my navigator. So yeah, let's get to this. Downloading the block template. So as this book is not about web design, CSS, or how to come up with the graphical user interface, we'll use a block template start for projects. Yeah. So before I go on, Savas obviously he pretty much went over, my chapter three. He was the navigator for it. So he was pretty much the navigator for it. So yeah, that's the guy that was responsible for that. So let's go. So as this book is not about web design, CS, so how to come up with a graphical user interface, we use a block template start of our project. We'll be using the clean block theme from startbootstrap.com and HTTP startbootstrap.com themes, clean block, so on and so forth. You know what I mean? So yeah, download the zip file that contains this theme and extract it to a new folder for this project. Go to terminal and cd to the new folder, run npm init and say yes to all the questions for package.json to be generated for us. Next in the folder, install Express with npm install Express. So in that folder, create index.js, which will serve as the root of the project. Fill it with the following code. So this is pretty much for index.js. That's pretty much what we got, what's going to consist of. So as you can see here, so before we go on with the project, right, we have to run something called npm init. So what that does is what npm init does is it pretty much it pretty much initializes our dependencies. So that's what it does. So it pretty much goes over the dependencies, and yeah, it just gives us like dependencies. So scripts, keywords, homepage bugs, URL repository license, author type, main scripts, dependencies, express, and so on and so forth. And then you got a package like .json, node modules. So yeah, that's what you have. So our node modules, right? So our express modules are nodes, so on and so forth. Then gulp file.js, right? So browser sync, banner content, load package.json for banner, load plugins, variable auto prefix acquire, browser sync, cleaner CSS, delete gulp header, merge plumber, rename sass and uglify. I don't know why it's called uglify, but but yeah. And then you got favicon, then you got mail, then you got mail contact me.php, and then you also got our HTML folders about contact index and post. Right, so you got my vendor, your- right, and then you pretty much got my plug folder for our images, so on and so forth. Then you got about contact.html, index.html, and then post.html. So that's what we have. Then yeah, then you got my assets, and then you got my variables. So as you can see, we're making use of directory names, right? So app get, wait, hold on. So as you can see, we got app.get, and then you got your parameter for that equal to or greater than our res.send file path that resolve, pages index HTML. Then app.get, about a parameters res.send file path that resolve directory name pages about.html, about app.get contact parameters res.send file path that resolve directory name pages contact HTML. Then you got app listen 4000 contact log, app listening on port 4000. So that's pretty much what we have for yeah. So that's pretty much what we have, and then the big difference is from like chapter 2 and 1. What I mean is that we've got to be making use of a bootstrap template. So as you can see here, we got cons express, require express. So that pretty much requires our module express. Our module express is pretty much responsible for express functionality, so on and so forth. Then we got cons path equals require path. So requiring our path, which actually gonna enable the functionality for the path that we use. So obviously, because we're not using embedded JavaScript, we can actually make use of a static file path, which is pages and index.html. And then you got a const app, new express. So what that does is it creates an express application. Express app, the express functions, top level function supported by the express modules. So it goes a long way towards our app. Then you got an application, our path disable settings, and so on and so forth. JSON, raw, request, response, route, router, static text, URL encoded. This is pretty much the properties for our variable. And then you got an app get function, right? Our get, you know, what that does is it pretty much, what that does is it pretty much, takes our URLs or our pretty much our HTTP response, the same one, and it allocates it to like different URL path. So this is the URL path for index. So that's our home page, right? So you got this, right? Our get, which can be allocated first, and then we got our send file path. What that does imports our file path from views, right? Which is index.html, right? And then you got about parameters to greater than. Then there's a send file path that resolve directory name pages, then about .html. Then app.get contact parameters equal to greater than there's a send file path that resolve directory name pages contact HTML. Then app.get post parameters res.send file, path that resolve directory name, app post.html, so on and so forth. That's pretty much what we have. It's app.listen, then 4000, then console.log app listing on port 4000. So yeah, that's what we have, and then I debug that, and now let's go over to my app. So as you can see here, you got start bootstrap, debug my client side, right? Clean blog, a blog theme by start bootstrap, man must explore, and this exploration at its greatest. So these are all the posts. For now, we don't have a URL for that. We just have a placeholder. And then you gotta go to home. As you can see index.html. So that's pretty much like a requisite, of what we have in our index.html. So pages then index.html, right? And then this is blank because this is our starting page. Then you go to about, it imports our views about.html, imports it, then about, you know, sample post, right? Name, Cabello, dress, that, then that. Then obviously you can see form submission successful. Then you go to that, you start bootstrap. As you can see here, I'm debugging my server side so you can actually see all the components that make up the server side. Beep, 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 beep. So yeah, that's what you're dealing with, and then you got HTML, JS, so on and so forth. So the reason why everything's 200 is because nothing's been modified. Then JPG, not found. Obviously, we set everything up in a way that you're gonna have a JPG, but don't worry. The later chapters that you're gonna be, watching, on the playlist, they actually contain that. Then yeah, that's pretty much what we have. The no throttling. Due to us using uncapped data, obviously there's gonna be no throttling because we don't have to deplete the amount of megabytes we're able to use, or the amount of the info we're gonna have to process, the amount of data, raw data that we have to turn into information. because it's just uncapped, so it's just like a it's just a green light all the way. There's no throttling involved, right? There's no throttling involved. Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much what we have. And then contact that HTML contact, and then yeah, and then the amount of time it takes to like process some of the apps and some of the aspects of that app like CSS, font manager, JS, so on and so forth, then clean a block theme by start bootstrap, and then yeah, that's pretty much what we have. Yeah, I was thank you very much, for being so attentive. Take care, Lord bless, and yeah, I'll see you whenever I need to see you. So as you can see, before I go, actually, so here's my HTML, my headers, my style sheet, clean blog, start bootstrap theme, right? href, assets, favicon, so on and so forth, contact.html, you know, right? Clean blog, start bootstrap theme, right? Then CSS, nav class, nav bar, start bootstrap menu, and so on and so forth. And as you can see here, the reason why, links have been made for these is because you want to have a case where there's correlations between the views so that when they get imported into our index.js page, right, there will be a sense of correlation and, our main server will be able to process them, forming part of the pages as well. And also this pretty much, not only that, but this also forms part of the nav bar that we're going to be making use of. So that one makes forms part of the index.html, the footers, everything in between, above and below, and then you post that HTML. That's pretty much it, ladies and gentlemen. So take care, Lord bless, and yeah, that's pretty much it.